because this is my big dream to get there.
Some voices are so powerful they don't just break the silence, they shatter expectations. They carry the weight of a life, the echo of struggles, and the raw, undeniable force of a dream that just refuses to die. On season 18 of America's Got Talent, one of those voices came from the most unlikely of places. It belonged to a man who'd spent more time casting nets into the ocean than he had chasing spotlights. A man who was, by his own admission, a simple fisherman from the Philippines. His name was Roland Abante. When he stepped onto that colossal stage, you could see him visibly trembling, and you could just feel the entire audience holding its breath. He was so unassuming, dressed in a plain shirt, his eyes wide with a mix of terror and hope. Through a translator, he told the world his story: a fisherman in the morning, a motorcycle taxi driver in the afternoon, and a singer for his community by night. This wasn't some polished performer with a stacked resume. This was a man who had just taken his very first international flight to be there, all for one shot at what he called his biggest dream in the world. The air was thick with doubt. You could see the skepticism on Simon Cowell's face. The distance between a fishing boat in Cebu and the stage in Hollywood just seemed impossibly vast. The song was, "When a Man Loves a Woman," but what poured out of him was so much more than a classic song. It was a flood of pure, unfiltered emotion. The sound of a soul laid bare. A voice so potent, so full of authentic pain and passion that it didn't just fill the room, it felt like it stopped time itself. In an instant, the nervous fisherman was gone, and a vocal titan stood in his place. The judges, the audience, the millions watching at home, everyone was stunned into silence, and then they erupted into a standing ovation that felt less like applause and more like a coronation. Howie Mandel's words captured it perfectly. "I think everybody just heard a life-changing moment." Simon Cowell, the notoriously tough critic, looked completely and utterly captivated. Roland Abante's audition wasn't just a performance, it was a revelation. It was the kind of TV moment that reality shows are built to find but almost never do. Here he was, the ultimate underdog, a diamond in the roughest of settings, a voice for the ages. By all accounts, he was the most inspiring singer of the season, maybe even many seasons. His journey seemed written for a fairy tale ending. He was a frontrunner, a viral sensation, a man whose talent felt like a sure thing. So, why was he sent home? Why did this seemingly destined champion get eliminated in the semi-finals, leaving everyone shocked and social media in an uproar? This wasn't just a simple case of losing a competition. The story of Roland Abante's exit from America's Got Talent reveals a deeper, more troubling truth about the machinery of the show itself. It exposes the heartbreaking reality of his journey and forces us to ask a tough question: did AGT, in its search for the perfect TV story, fail its most inspiring singer and, in doing so, miss out on its biggest star? To really get the size of Roland Abante's moment on that stage, you have to understand the world he came from, a world so far from the glitz of Hollywood it might as well be another planet. Born and raised in the humble coastal town of Santander in Cebu, Philippines, Roland's life was defined by the harsh realities of manual labor. His days began before dawn, not in a vocal booth, but on a small fishing boat, casting nets into the sea, just hoping for a modest catch. The hands that would later grip a microphone in front of millions were calloused from years of hauling ropes. And when his work as a fisherman was done, his day was far from over. He'd hop on his Hable, a motorcycle taxi, to ferry people and goods around town, earning just enough to help his family get by. That was his life, a grueling, relentless cycle of physical work. For Roland, music wasn't a career, it was an escape. It was a lifeline. In a town where dreams were often anchored by necessity, his voice was his private rebellion. He found his first audiences in the lively karaoke bars of his neighborhood, a cornerstone of Filipino culture. Karaoke was his real training ground. It was where the fisherman and the driver could disappear, and the singer could be born. He'd sing the classics, from Filipino love songs to Western power ballads, his voice echoing with a raw power that made people stop and listen, but his biggest supporter, the one who saw a star in him long before anyone else, was his mother. She was the foundation of his dream, encouraging him to chase his gift even when it seemed like a fantasy. She believed in him so much that she would sell their few precious belongings just to get enough money for him to enter local singing contests. Tragically, just months before he stepped onto the AGT stage, his mother passed away. She never got to see the moment the world finally heard what she had known all along. Her memory became the emotional heart of his journey, a silent dedication in every single note. Even with local encouragement, the path was anything but smooth. He was told, time and again, that his place was at sea, not on a stage. He competed in local contests, with small victories often overshadowed by losses. He even competed on a popular Filipino variety show, Tawaging Tanghalan, and despite a powerful performance, he didn't win the championship. For a while, it seemed like his critics were right. After a brief period of local fame following a viral karaoke video in 2014, the momentum just stalled. He reportedly even turned down an invitation to appear on the Ellen DeGeneres show, a move that could have been his first major international break. The bright lights of success seemed to fade, and he quietly returned to his life in Cebu, back to the fishing boats and the motorcycle. Yet, the dream didn't die. It just lay dormant. Fueled by his deep Christian faith and the unwavering support of his wife, Seth, and their young son. He kept singing, sometimes just for himself, his voice carrying out over the ocean. He wasn't just singing for recognition anymore, he was singing to survive, to process his grief, to honor his mother's memory. It was this deep well of pain, resilience, and hope that he brought with him to America. When he stood on that AGT stage, he wasn't just another contestant. He was a man channeling a lifetime of hardship, sacrifice, and love into 3 minutes of music. That is what the judges heard. That is what the world felt. And that's why his eventual dismissal felt so profoundly wrong. The journey from a viral karaoke video to the center of the entertainment world isn't a straight line. For Roland Abante, it was a path filled with years of waiting, second chances, and one moment that changed everything. The seed for his AGT audition was planted years after his first brush with local fame had faded. While he had gone back to his old life, the digital footprint of his talent remained. It was one of those old videos that eventually caught the eye of the right people, leading to the improbable invitation to audition for Season 18 of America's Got Talent in 2023. For Roland, this felt like a final, desperate shot at a dream he had almost given up on. The decision to go was massive. It meant leaving his family, his community, and the only life he'd ever known. It meant boarding a plane for the very first time. And it meant traveling to a country where he didn't speak the language, a vulnerability that was clear the moment he walked out with a translator. His nervousness wasn't an act for the cameras, it was the real anxiety of a man who was completely out of his element. Then came the audition. The second the first notes of "When a Man Loves a Woman" left his lips, a transformation happened. The shy, nervous man disappeared, and in his place stood an artist of profound power. The voice that came out was a force of nature, raspy, soulful, and so sincere it hurt. The judges were floored. Sofia Vergara's jaw dropped. Howie Mandel leaned forward, totally captivated. Simon Cowell's skepticism melted into pure astonishment. He later admitted he genuinely thought Roland wouldn't be able to get through the song because of his nerves, which made the reveal of his talent that much more stunning. The audience was on its feet before the song was even over, the applause a deafening roar of approval. The judges' praise was over the top. Sofia Vergara declared, "I have a feeling you're going to have to stop fishing because this is where you needed to be." Howie Mandel repeated that they had all just seen a life-changing moment. Simon was so moved that he went on stage to give the emotional singer a hug. With 4 emphatic yes votes, Roland's fairy tale journey had officially begun. His audition clip exploded online, shooting to the top of YouTube's trending lists and racking up millions of views. He was a global phenomenon. Fans from all over the world rallied behind him, captivated by his voice, his humility, and his incredible story. When he advanced to the semi-finals, the anticipation was huge. He chose an even bigger song, Whitney Houston's iconic "I Will Always Love You." It was a massive gamble. A lesser singer would have been crushed by it, but Roland made it his own. He delivered a version that was, once again, powerful, emotional, and stunning, earning another thunderous standing ovation from all 4 judges and the entire theater. At that moment, his spot in the finals seemed like a sure thing. He delivered 2 of the most memorable performances of the season. He had the voice, the story, and the overwhelming support of the public. He wasn't just a contestant anymore, he was an inspiration. The stage was set for his triumphant entry into the finale. But then, the unthinkable happened. The results show for the semi-finals was tense, but for the millions of fans following Roland Abante's journey, it was supposed to be a formality. After his incredible performance of "I Will Always Love You," his spot in the finale felt like a lock. The judges had praised him, the audience had given him a massive standing ovation, and social media was buzzing with predictions that he would win the whole thing. Host Terry Crews started announcing the results. As each finalist was named, Roland's name wasn't called. A nervous quiet started to ripple through his supporters. Then, the final results were revealed. The 2 acts moving on to the finals were the dance group Chibi Unity and the magician Ana de Guzman. There was a collective, stunned silence in the theater, followed by audible gasps. Online, the reaction was instantaneous and volcanic. Disbelief turned to frustration, which quickly erupted into outrage. The fairy tale had come to a jarring, abrupt end. The man with the life-changing voice, the humble fisherman who had become a global inspiration, was going home. The feeling wasn't just disappointment, it was a sense of injustice. How could a contestant who delivered such powerful, emotional, and technically flawless performances be sent home? Fans flooded social media, calling the result robbed, unfair, and shocking. Many felt his talent had clearly outshone several acts that had advanced. His elimination felt less like a vote and more like a catastrophic mistake. This was a moment that seemed to break the unspoken promise of a talent show, that true, undeniable talent will always be rewarded. Roland had done everything right. He had the backstory, the humility, and most importantly, a voice that was in a league of its own. In the aftermath, Roland handled the devastating news with the same quiet dignity he'd shown all along. He thanked the judges and his supporters for the opportunity. But you could see the heartbreak. This wasn't just about losing a title or a prize, it was the gut-wrenching feeling of a once-in-a-lifetime chance slipping away. For many viewers, the show had lost its most compelling story and its most awe-inspiring talent. The man who judges hinted deserved to go straight to the finale was suddenly out of the running. His elimination became the central conflict of his story. It wasn't his failure, but the perceived failure of the system, a system that was designed to elevate a talent like his, but in the end, inexplicably rejected him. The question was no longer if Roland Abante would become a star, but why the biggest talent platform in the world had let him go. Roland Abante's shocking elimination begs the question, what on earth went wrong? When a contestant has that much talent and a story that powerful, you can't just brush off their exit as a matter of taste. It points to something more complex, something baked into the system of a show like America's Got Talent. One of the biggest theories revolves around the show's growing focus on marketability over raw talent. Roland was a purist. His act was just a man, a microphone, and a voice. There were no fireworks, no backup dancers, no flashy gimmicks. His authenticity was his greatest strength, but in a primetime TV spectacle, could it have also been a weakness? The show isn't just a contest, it's a product. Acts with big, visual elements are often seen as more marketable for a Las Vegas show, the ultimate prize. Was Roland's quiet, humble style seen as less commercially viable than a high-energy dance crew or a magician? This leads to another common critique of AGT, that the show has become too formulaic. There's a growing feeling that producers prioritize pre-planned emotional stories over genuine discovery. Roland's story fit the underdog mold perfectly, but maybe his journey didn't fit the specific winner's narrative they had in mind for the season. The final selection might be less about who is best and more about creating a balanced portfolio of acts, a singer, a dancer, a magician, to appeal to the widest audience. In that kind of curated show, an incredible singer might get squeezed out if another act fills a different, more necessary slot for the finale, but the most controversial theory touches on a very sensitive issue, the America in America's Got Talent. A huge part of his fanbase believes his nationality played a role in him going home. While AGT has always featured international contestants, there's a belief among some viewers that non-American acts face an invisible ceiling. It is extremely rare for an international contestant, especially one who isn't from a Western, English-speaking country, to win the whole thing. The show's title itself might create a subtle, maybe even unintentional, bias with its American voting audience. This debate isn't new. Judge Howie Mandel has publicly defended the show's global reach, comparing AGT to the US Open in tennis or the Olympics of talent, where the best competitors from all over the world are welcome. He argues that talent has no borders. Yet, the results often tell a different story. International acts frequently get golden buzzers and create viral moments, but they often fall short in the final rounds of voting. This has led to widespread speculation that while international contestants are great for ratings and online buzz, they aren't ultimately who the show's core American audience votes for to win. For Roland's fans, this provided a painful but believable explanation for something that seemed inexplicable. Of course, there's no concrete proof of any deliberate bias. But the perception of unfairness was real for his millions of supporters. They saw a system that celebrated his story for the views and the emotion but failed to see him through when it counted. AGT didn't fail to recognize his talent, but it arguably failed to create an environment where that talent could win on its own. For most contestants, getting eliminated from AGT is the end of the story. The spotlight moves on, and they fade away. But for Roland Abante, the end of his AGT journey was really just the beginning of his career. The show may have failed to crown him, but it gave him something more valuable, a global stage and the hearts of millions. The support for him didn't die down. It grew into a dedicated international fanbase that refused to let his voice be silenced. His story resonated deeply within the global Filipino community, who saw him as a national hero. He was no longer just Roland the fisherman, he was a treasure who had shown the world the depth of Filipino talent. Almost immediately after his time on AGT, plans for tours across the United States and Canada started coming together. The man who had never been on a plane was now headlining his own international shows. The dream of singing for a living wasn't a hope anymore, it was his new reality. The AGT exposure also led to exciting new possibilities. Rumors and photos started flying around of him with fellow Filipino singing sensation and AGT alum Marcelito Pomoy, sparking wild speculation about a joint concert. The idea of two of the Philippines' most powerful and unique voices teaming up created a massive buzz, and perhaps most importantly, in early 2025, Roland announced he was writing and recording his own original music. This is a huge step for an artist who built his fame by singing other people's songs. Now, he's finally telling his own story, in his own words. He's moving from being a talent show contestant to a true, independent artist. Despite all the new fame, Roland remains incredibly grounded. His social media is a humble mix of concert announcements and heartfelt thanks to his fans and family. He hasn't forgotten where he came from, but he's no longer defined by it. The ocean he once fished to survive is now just the backdrop to a life he once only dreamed of. So, did America's Got Talent really fail Roland Abante? In one sense, yes. The system highlighted his inspiring story for its narrative power but fell short of rewarding the immense talent at its core. His elimination is a stark reminder that in the world of reality TV, the most inspiring story doesn't always get the fairy tale ending, but on the other hand, the show gave him a platform that launched him from total obscurity to global recognition in just a few weeks. It opened doors that had always been locked. Ultimately, Roland Abante's story isn't one of failure, but of incredible resilience. He may have lost the competition, but he won a career, a global following, and the freedom to share his gift with the world on his own terms. He proved that a standing ovation from the world is more powerful than the vote of any one audience. AGT may have missed its chance to crown its biggest star, but Roland Abante is shining brightly all the same, proving that some voices are just too powerful to be contained by a TV show. What do you think? Was Roland Abante's elimination fair, or was he robbed of a spot in the finals? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe talent knows no borders, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories that television doesn't always tell.